Welcome to RT. Today our guest is Stanislav Zas, Secretary General of the Collective Security Treaty Organization. Mr. Zas, hello and thank you so much for talking to us today. Of course, today we'll mainly focus on Kazakhstan and the CSTO's peacekeeping mission there. As we know, the peacekeeping force is now withdrawing from the country. Does that mean the situation has been fully stabilized?
You know, I actually spent the last 2 days in Kazakhstan. I visited the capital and Almaty, where the operational command is located and where the peacekeeping force was mainly deployed. Yes, the situation has been stabilized. Over the last few days, there's been a major shift. We can now say that the government and the law enforcement have the situation across the country under control. We can now safely use the word stabilization. Unfortunately, it's too early to say that things have gone back to normal. The state of emergency and certain restrictions are still in place, though there are 5 regions where they've been lifted. It's a gradual process. But at this point, we, of course, cannot say that things have gone back to normal. It's a process.
What are your thoughts on the role of the CSTO in recent events in Kazakhstan? How efficient was the CSTO's assistance to Kazakhstan?
I believe it was quite an efficient mission. Our peacekeepers accomplished the objectives of this operation. As I said just recently at the ceremony marking the withdrawal of the peacekeeping force, these goals were simple: to assist our brotherly Kazakh nation in ensuring public safety and stability. The peacekeepers succeeded in doing just that. Most importantly, the mission has been praised by the people and the president of Kazakhstan.
Mr. Zas, all of us have followed the developments in different cities across Kazakhstan, especially in Almaty. We've seen looters, and Mr. Tokayev said that there were some kind of organized militant groups that were attacking and clashing with the Kazakh military. Did the CSTO force face anything of the sort?
No. At the sites that peacekeepers were guarding, there was no direct military engagement with the militants or terrorists over the course of the peacekeeping operation. I would point out that the peacekeepers had a sobering effect on everyone. They immediately realized that this is a serious business, so the deployment had that effect. There was definitely a shift, so probably it made some hotheads cool down, and they realized they had no chance of success.
Could you tell us about the sentiment of the locals when a foreign peacekeeping force is coming to their rescue? Did they thank you, I mean, the troops that took part in the operation? That's what usually happens. At least with Russian peacekeepers, we saw ordinary people showing their gratitude in one way or another.
Well, the response was good. The people seemed to understand why our peacekeeping force was deployed in the country. I suppose they realized that the peacekeepers were there to help them in these tough times. So the locals treated them accordingly. There were no clashes or disagreements between the locals and the peacekeepers over the course of the entire operation. There was no pushback. The local people showed understanding and support. I've talked to the mayor of Almaty, the Almaty region, and the local authorities were very grateful for our help.
Experts have different opinions on what sparked this crisis and how the situation will evolve. Do you believe that the conflict is well and truly over, or is there a possibility that Kazakhstan will once again face this kind of, for lack of a better word, disaster and a potential collapse of the government?
I wouldn't say there is a threat of some kind of retaliation or a new outbreak. I don't think so. I'm almost entirely convinced it's not possible. Why? First of all, the situation is under control. Secondly, a major investigation is underway to get the full picture and determine all the actors involved. Measures will be taken in accordance with Kazakhstan's laws. And of course, everyone, not only the Kazakh people, but also the leadership, learned their lessons. So I don't believe there will be another outbreak like this or any retaliation.
After the collapse of the USSR and the establishment of many sovereign states all at once, after the CIS, the Commonwealth of Independent States, was established, many of the former Soviet republics had to deal with internal strife that had always been there, but for various reasons reignited. There was a lot of violence and many refugees who lost their homes and their futures. Many of these countries are still part of frozen territorial conflicts. What do you think are the reasons the CIS is plagued by these tragedies?
Ну, это надо тема отдельного разговора, вообще-то.
Well, we probably need another interview to elaborate on this topic. In short, we were all part of one huge country that collapsed, and these are probably the aftershocks. The collapse of a country like the USSR was bound to have consequences. So if I try to answer this very difficult question in just a few words, I would say that what happened back in the 90s was one of those reasons. But the circumstances are different in each country, as are the underlying reasons for conflicts. I don't think there is one-size-fits-all explanation. Going back to the gratitude by the Kazakh people, in the last few days I heard local people thanking our peacekeepers and everyone who was involved in this operation. Yesterday, for example, I was having breakfast at the hotel and a guy, he's an employee, came up to me and asked if I was Stanislav Zas. I said yes. He asked to take a picture with me and I agreed. He said, "I saw you with the Peacekeepers. Thank you very much." He shook my hand. It's nice, of course. This is what ordinary people think.
Приятно, конечно. Это отношение простого народа.
Ну, еще попробуйте на такси по Москве поездить, тоже услышите много хорошего.
You should talk to the taxi drivers in Moscow. You'll hear a lot of nice things from them too. I would know, I take taxis all the time. As far as I understand, the peacekeeping operation in Kazakhstan was the first of its kind for the CSTO. I'm sure all kinds of experts are now busy taking stock and mapping out strategies for the future. We have all heard President Vladimir Putin telling Defense Minister Shoigu that everyone did a good job. As the CSTO Secretary General, would you say you have learned any lessons from the crisis in Kazakhstan?
Для себя что-то из этого конфликта в Казахстане.
Безусловно.
Of course, it's definitely an important lesson for all of us. And later, when everything has calmed down, when the withdrawal is over, we will review it and draw conclusions. Take our legal framework or training for our peacekeeping force. We need to refine that. Like you said, it's our first real operation of this kind. Our task now is to review it and adjust our operations if need be. That's perfectly natural. But I don't see any need for major overhaul. The CSTO's framework and the tools we have prove to be quite effective, so I don't think we need to introduce any fundamental changes. But we'll make some adjustments, of course.
Ну, я здесь не вижу необходимости. Корректировать будем, конечно.
Что-то, может быть, и придется корректировать, потому что было применение именно...
Some adjustments are probably in order, since it was just one operation in one country. I'm sure the framework to ensure security in this region will change now. Some adjustments need to be made to prevent similar crises from happening in the future. Are you considering it?
Возникновение подобных ситуаций.
I would break it down into two parts. In terms of the way we do things, I'll say it again. No, I don't see the need for any serious rethink. We've achieved the goal we set. Our organization's mission is to collectively ensure the security, sovereignty and territorial integrity of our member states. And we've successfully done that. So we don't need to overhaul the entire framework. Reforms are needed when the system doesn't work anymore. We've seen that our framework is effective. We'll introduce some adjustments, of course. I don't want to jump the gun. Right now, let the people who'd been on the ground and involved in it from the very beginning do the ex-post assessment. We talked about that at our meeting with the Peacekeeping Forces Command. It is clear we also need to carefully study what happened after the withdrawal is over. This is also true for the people who were there on the ground from day one. We'll involve everyone in this process, and afterwards we'll decide on the adjustments we need to make.
Опять же, повторюсь, что
Like I said, as the crisis unfolded in Kazakhstan, and it was a tragedy really, there were many different interpretations of what was happening. People had mixed opinions about President Tokayev's decision to invite CSTO peacekeepers. Some even went as far as comparing the CSTO and NATO. I don't know if you appreciate it. Still, we have heard the US express its dissatisfaction over President Tokayev's invitation of the peacekeeping force in Kazakhstan. They weren't at all happy when this operation was launched. All the Western media echoed the US sentiment that this was an act of aggression by Russia against Kazakhstan, if not an outright military occupation. Very few people saw the involvement of the CSTO's peacekeeping force for what it was, a genuine attempt to help. Now that the operation is almost over and the peacekeeping divisions are leaving the country, do we have something to respond to the US and to all those who badmouthed the peacekeepers, claimed that Russia was occupying Kazakhstan and painted Moscow as an aggressor?
оккупировала Россия агрессор.
First, let me correct you on one thing. There were no peacekeeping divisions in Kazakhstan. The entire force deployed there is less than a single division in strength. You'd think that alone would dispel anyone's concerns about aggression or military occupation.
It would take a greater force than that, wouldn't it?
Of course, it's all nonsense. As for the Peacekeepers mission, there was one goal, to assist Kazakhstan, and that goal was completed successfully. Obviously, there's never been any aggressive intent in the actions of the Peacekeepers. They were there to protect strategic facilities and essential infrastructure. In other words, they guarded and ensured the continuous functioning of, say, the water supply system and central heating in Almaty, as well as electricity, communications, you name it. Is that a bad thing? This was a crisis, and all that infrastructure could be damaged. Had the city been left without heat or water or electricity, it could all have taken a much darker turn. What we did was a good thing. It was literally a mission to keep the peace. Some people are snide about it. Look, if you genuinely want the best for Kazakhstan, you should welcome any and all assistance. Everything our peacekeepers have done in Kazakhstan over the last few days has clearly had a positive effect on Kazakhstan. The situation is stable, order has been restored, and people are safe. Those are all very positive things. I think that soon all this finger-pointing and allegations will fizzle down.
Стихнут и пропадут.
Like we say in Russia, everyone judges others by their own standards.
Perhaps. I believe that many of the comments we've heard were politically motivated. Reasonable people with a more balanced view of the situation knew from the start there wouldn't be any aggression. The peacekeepers go in, complete their mission and leave. Given the type of relationship Russia has with Kazakhstan, aggression is the last thing that could happen. But some are trying to spin it the other way.
Да, Станислав Васильевич, если можно, просто...
Mr. Zas, if you don't mind, I would like to explain something in more detail for our audience. To me, it's obvious, of course, since I've been following the developments 24/7. The peacekeepers were invited to take some of the burden off Kazakhstan's own forces, so they could focus on saving the people, right? Could you give us the specifics of what our peacekeeping forces were assigned to do in Kazakhstan?
Чем именно были заняты наши миротворческие силы?
Это охрана и оборона важных объектов.
Well, like I said, they protected essential city infrastructure, guarded strategic facilities and government buildings. That was the mission. In doing so, we gave some breathing room to Kazakhstan's own law enforcement and military, which aren't weak by any account, and let them focus on the problem at hand. The law enforcement had their job to do and the military had theirs. That was the plan. Helping the local forces was part of the mission.
Вторая производная от этой деятельности всей миротворцев.
Да, но это с другой стороны...
Also, this helps boost the morale of Kazakhstan's own military, since they know that their loved ones back home are safe, that everything is fine.
Беспокоиться о своих родных, кто дома.
Конечно, уже первый...
Certainly, when the first planes landed in Kazakhstan, it had a positive effect on the people who were there to contain the crisis. They could see that help was coming. This is a good way to boost morale.
мобилизует людей, вдохновляет их.
Yes, it certainly is important. Good morale is already half the battle.
Those were a challenging few days. When President Tokayev spoke to the nation, he was able to address the complexity of the situation and recognize the threats that the country was facing.
Сложились для страны в те дни.
Станислав Васильевич, ну отойдем от темы Казахстана.
Mr. Zas, let's switch gears. I'd like to talk about something less stressful. If I'm not mistaken, the organization celebrates 2 anniversaries this year. One is the 30th anniversary of the Collective Security Treaty, and the other is the 20th anniversary of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, the 20th anniversary of the CSTO. For the first time, a peacekeeping contingent from all the member states was deployed. If you could share with us your feelings about these 2 milestones, what has been achieved so far, and what the future holds for us? New members, perhaps? I would really like to hear what you feel about these 2 very significant dates.
Да, это будут юбилейные для нас.
Yes, we have anniversaries this year. 30 years since the Collective Security Treaty was signed and 20 years since our organization was founded. On the one hand, that's a considerable period of time. But on the other hand, of course, it's but a blink of an eye. Nevertheless, all of the member states have achieved so much progress over these years, and that's worth noting. We've come a long way from the initial idea of establishing a legal framework, coming up with forces and resources, as well as a framework to use these forces, to provide collective training for the personnel and troops. So what we have now is a well-functioning organization, and the recent events have proven that the CSTO is an effective mechanism that can ensure the security of its member states under any circumstances. I think that's the sentiment we have as we are approaching these anniversaries. Of course, it's also a good opportunity to take a little break from the current affairs and take a look at the big picture and outline a vision for the future. We've established a process for this as well. We're now taking stock of what's been done and looking at promising future avenues. And at the summit at the end of the year, we will present this vision for the consideration of our heads of state. We want to evolve. The situation developing in the CSTO's area of responsibility dictates the need to strengthen our organization.
It is also safe to say that the CSTO is currently the dominant force in its area of responsibility.
Да, безусловно, это так.
Yes, we definitely are. And there is one more thing. Our other objective is to develop relations with other agencies, international organizations that deal with security matters. I think that this is something we will do as well.
Я думаю, этот путь мы тоже пройдем.
Плодотворно вообще-то это сотрудничество с другими альянсами.
Is cooperation with other alliances, with other agencies, productive overall? Or is the CSTO still treated with apprehension and caution? Or has the CSTO had to prove its importance for the region, for the people in the region first, to be taken with all the seriousness the organization deserves?
Чтобы начали относиться со всей серьезностью, которой заслуживает ОДКБ.
You know, we have different relationships with international organizations. With some, we enjoy win-win cooperation. For example, we coordinate our counter-terrorism efforts with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. We have good relations with the OSCE. We've established good professional relations with the United Nations, mainly on matters concerning peacekeeping and the fight against terrorism. Good groundwork has been laid there. As for other organizations, let me put it this way. There's either very little cooperation or none whatsoever. But that is just how things are. There's no need to fuss over it. We believe, though, it's certainly not helping to improve collective security here in Eurasia, where we live. So it would be beneficial for all of us if we were to build normal relations.
Выстроили нормальные отношения.
Да, но самое главное показывать.
I guess it's important to lead by example, to make more sovereign countries want to join an organization that brings peace everywhere. Or is the time not right yet?
Мир.
Надо,
Или
да.
пока не нужно.
Нет, ну, правильно.
No, you're right. It is important to be appealing to all other states, agencies, and international organizations. And I think we're doing a good job in this regard. There are many countries we cooperate and have normal and friendly relations with, and they take part in the events held by the CSTO, and they do so gladly and regularly. So we have been doing all that, and I think we will see more of this. We will be seen by others as an example of an effective arrangement.
Механизм для других такое понимание будет, конечно.
Станислав Васильевич.
Thank you. That was Stanislav Zas, Secretary General of the Collective Security Treaty Organization. Goodbye.
До свидания.